All right, so we are going to have three speakers, and first is Jim Ward, and then Autumn Mullet, and then Shane Black. So Jim, do you want to come up and speak?
So Friday was my 65th birthday. So, and I've never shared any about my tattoo. And interestingly enough, the first person who ever, in at least many decades, I was working out at the Croc, and a guy in the locker room came up to me and said, "That's a beautiful tattoo. Does it have a meaning?" And I just said, yes, it really does, but I'd rather share it over a beer than in a locker room, so it would be a longer discussion. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting coincidence. When we talk about body modification, we usually talk about choice, choosing to mark ourselves, choosing to claim our bodies in some intentional way. And it's hard to explain the meaning of that for gay men, especially in my generation. For me, this tattoo was one of the first choices I made that really felt like that. I got it in about 1998 when I was finding my way back into a very different gay community than I had entered after a stretch of years shaped by loss and withdrawal. So many beautiful young men were gone because of AIDS. They were ghosts now. Friends, people I danced with, people I admired from across the room. And my long-term relationship had ended. It felt like grief was everywhere. I wanted something that could hold all of that. My best friend and I had decided we were both going to ink up. He had lost his partner to AIDS. And that moment kind of gave a moment of shared intention. So I worked with a tattoo artist whose book of art that I really liked, and to design something. And you can show that. So this is something I designed with this artist. And what you're looking at is based on Balinese tribal art. What you're seeing, what I intended, was an Icarus-like figure, but not in the traditional Greek myth, where Icarus is a victim of hubris and overambition. Not the version where his wings melt and he falls from the sky. But for me, this was a new myth, imagining those young men rising, flying into the sun with courage and beauty. Not disappearing, but ascending. And it's also sort of a symbol of myself, a kind of phoenix moment, where a reminder that I was still here, still becoming, still allowed to rise after everything. And honestly, part of that meaning came from the simple act that people would see it. I was back on the dance floor again, shirt off, surrounded by friends, and this tattoo was right there on my back. It was a way of saying, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm a part of this. It was body positivity before I had the language for that. Yes, it's a memorial, and yes, it's a beginning, but more than anything, it was a choice to claim a little power at a time when so much felt out of my hands. A choice that put a story on my skin that would help me remember where I was on life's epic flight. It's a memory, but it's also a myth in the best sense, a story that keeps giving me something to live by, an illustration for my book of life. And every time I see it, I feel that spark again. I'm at one with my ghosts flying into the sun.
Hello, my name is Autumn. I use they, any pronouns, and this is my tattoo. If you want to pull up the picture, you can. While not every tattoo has to have a deep or personal meaning, out of all mine, this one does. You see, not only is this Not only is this a very pretty bird, this bird is also my Native American name. I received this name many years ago alongside other family members during a naming ceremony. Excuse me, it's small text, I can't read. There it is. The medicine man's name has long since left my memory, but I do remember him just saying, "Call him Grandpa." Everybody does. Grandpa went through a long process to find my name. First, he came to visit me. We spent a few hours just talking, before he ventured out into the woods to pray to the Creator for guidance. Grandpa spent well over a week there, maybe even longer. Out in the woods, just praying to the Creator, asking for anything, any form of guidance. Eventually, the Creator answered him, and not long after that, I was finally told what my name was to be. Shishko Benshikwe. Or, when translated into English, it means blue jay woman, the noisiest bird in the forest. Ask any of those who know me, specifically Shane. Get me on a topic of interest. I won't shut up. I'll just yak, 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 yak. Just like the blue jay, I always got a lot to say and always have to be heard. Thank you.
I'm Shane, he, him. You've heard some great stories today about tattoos, but I'm here to talk about a different body mod. Since I've come here, I have been very open about the fact that I am transgender, and back on June 28th of 2022, I had top surgery. This is something I had wanted for the better part of a decade. I had spent years every morning binding my chest, stressing about what layers, if it was hiding the things that weren't supposed to be there, if I needed to put on something different, something that fit better. Every morning was a battle with my body to get ready. Finally, the day for top surgery came, and I was ready for my body to be the way I always felt it was supposed to be. I remember laying on the table, they had started the anesthesia, and they didn't tell me to count back from 10. And so I'd just been laying there for a bit, and I started to feel like it's been longer than 10 seconds. You know, shouldn't I be asleep? Next thing I know, pat on the shoulder, "Hey bud, surgery's over." I could feel the post-surgery vest getting pulled around, and I desperately wanted to see my new chest. So I picked my head up, felt like it weighed a ton. I saw a flat chest and bandages, and then my head drops, because it's just so heavy. And then I ended up coming to pretty quickly, and I was actually able to walk myself out of the hospital. I didn't need to be wheeled out in a wheelchair. I was just present. The rest of my recovery went just as easily, and I've been able to live far more present and comfortably in my body. When I get dressed in the morning, I just throw on a shirt, and I know it fits the way it's supposed to fit. It's been 3.5 years since I had surgery, and I was binding my chest for more than twice that time. And unless I am actively thinking about it, I feel like this is the way my chest has always been. That's only been about 12% of my life, like 1/8 of my life, yet this feels like it's just always been this way. And I've just been able to live a much more fuller, present life. I feel like I've lived more in the last 3.5 years than in the 25 years before that. I didn't want to just flash my chest to a room full of unconsenting people, but I am not shy at all. So if you want to see me after the service, I am more than happy to show anybody. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to try and stick close to the microphone. I have multiple tattoos. The first is a simple line drawing of Kokopelli on my upper right arm, the product of being in New Orleans for Microsoft Tech Ed. 3 of us from my office got tattoos, primarily because our boss had fussed at us and told us not to come back with tattoos. There in the tattoo parlor, confronted with the sheets of flash art, I decided I wanted a trickster spirit of some kind. I was a white girl who'd never heard of cultural appropriation, and so I opted for Kokopelli and never looked back. Years later, I got a more mindful back piece on my right shoulder blade, art by a friend whose designs illustrated my first solo collection, Near Plus Far. I wrote the story Summer Night in Durham about that experience, drawing on the sultry warmth of the evening parking lot the slow roll of tires, the squabble of heat-irritated clientele. And you can put that slide up if you like. There you go. No, back one. There we go. I love the design I carry, which is a wing from one angle, a fish from another, an eye from a third, and a pen from yet another. And I used it for one of my favorite stories in the collection. Its ambiguous, changing nature mirrored, and still does, my own. Once you've gotten a couple of tattoos, you learn there's an itch sometimes that only a tattoo can scratch. My third tattoo on my right forearm was a bee, Celtic referent of art and poetry, but also a symbol to remind me of the fragility of life, the centrality of creation, the power of collective action, because what are bees but little bio-machines of creation, joyful in their work, communal in their existence. There is something inspiring about bees. And bumblebees are solitary creatures, gentlest of workers, making sure that flowers become fruit and that the world keeps on being a good and giving place. Finally, above the bee is a moth, and we can put that one up. And that's Bruce. He's my favorite. My most recent, most mindful, and deliberately chosen tattoo. I knew I wanted a moth to celebrate an insect in a book I'd just published, Devil's Gun, and I knew I wanted to get it while celebrating my 60th birthday in Barcelona's Gothic Quarter. I went to Meat Shop Tattoo, which I'd researched beforehand. Looking through the books of Flash, I picked a lovely one drawn by Joan Tatavol, made my deposit, and agreed to return the next day. The next day, Joan came to the waiting room to get me for the appointment. "How many tattoos do you have already?" he asked as we went up the stairs, and I told him 3. He nodded sagely. "You are the perfect customer," he told me. "You know what to expect." We discussed size and placement before he printed out the transfer and put it on my forearm. He fiddled with it while another tattooist set up his customer, a shaggy, haired, stocky man getting a shoulder piece. A third tattooist wandered in with his customer, a small man getting a tattoo on the back of his upper thigh, just below the swell of his ass. And he stood there admiring his own shapely buttock, hands on his hips, as we all discussed placement. I rested on the tattoo table with my arm draped over a black upholstered stand. The tattoo was sizable, a good 5 inches from one wingtip to another, which seemed appropriate enough, given the one in my book is enormous and sails between the stars. He roughed in the overall lines, then began to fill in the detail work, the stained glass patternings on the wings. The appointment took 2 hours before Joan fell to the point where he was adjusting the stippling here and there on edging the wings and tweaking the delicate lines of the antenna. "We have a saying in English," I told him, "perfect is the enemy of done." He laughed, adjusted 2 more lines, and finally relented. I love my intricate moth. Moths are symbols of transformation, of hidden knowledge, and of intuitive connection to the spiritual realms. In the book, the moth is a giant structure hanging in space, and it is a place of transformation for every character that enters it. I have other marks on my body. We all have scars of one form or another, things trauma has written on our body or our soul. In choosing my tattoos, I choose some of what is written on me. I am bee and trickster, bird and moth. Just as I choose the colors and fabric I wear, the scents of perfume on my skin, the shape and color of my eyeglasses, or even the color of my hair and fingernails. I am comfortable in this body, and part of that comfort is I've made alterations here and there to express who I am, while accepting that other parts are not so changeable. Age alters us as time writes itself into our appearance. Body weight may wax and wane and wax again, but hair color shifts inexorably towards gray, then white, and there are wrinkles now, and even laugh lines are a surprise sometimes. We grow shorter. I've lost 1 inch so far, and I always liked being tall. I can resist that change and take to wearing higher heels, or I can keep on wearing sneakers and not worry about it. There is no right or wrong to it, and the decision may change from day to day. We live in these bodies. Why shouldn't we make of them what we can? Sometimes the technology for that is very new, other times very old. But no matter what, it's your choice. If it's what you want to say, it's your truth to speak. In thinking about this, it occurred to me that we do, or can do if we choose, the same thing inside ourselves, rearranging our internal architecture rather than the external, by choosing what stories we tell ourselves, what narratives we let resonate in our souls, how we interpret the day-to-day moments of our lives. I try to start each day with gratitude for something I've experienced, a particular color of blue, the warm drowsiness of my bed, something I'm looking forward to, even if it's just something small like an Egg McMuffin. I practice peace rather than pain, and rather than dwell on things I can't control or change, I can tell myself more interesting and inspirational narratives. This is a deliberate choice. This is part of my existence and very much part of my faith. We can practice mindfulness and meditation, and sometimes our reminders for that are written on our bodies. My bee reminds me of the joy of productivity. My moth encourages my mind to chase it into strange and wonderful places. I'm intending a new tattoo this summer, a triangle of fireflies, something I grew up with and missed during my years in Seattle, and a symbol that I hope to chase into another book in the coming years. Say's firefly, aka the angled candle firefly, the state insect of Indiana. Another creature that moves from one form to another, egg to larva, to pupa, to adult. We began the service listening to Cake and the Karmic Worm sing the transformation song. Transformation occurs, whether we will it or not. And no matter how complicated or ornate or bedazzled the form, you remain you at the heart of it. You remain you. So think about what's written not just on your body, but your mind as well, and what you want to be written there, what makes you more you. Chase your own moths, your own fireflies into the dusk, and never be afraid to proclaim them verbally or visually as yours. And now we will have the offering. People will pass among you with little baskets. Please give them money. Thank you.